You're listening to the Gambling Files podcast, the podcast that's all about the gambling industry. Before we begin, I'd like to say a few words about our very, very special sponsors. Something for you to think about, perhaps, while you listen. Do you never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips? Perhaps you need to think about talking to Every Matrix and their new product, Odds Matrix. It's not just some white label solution, it's a turnkey solution. And that's why more and more providers are turning to them to do what they do, to bring their love. Perhaps you're caught in a trap. Can't walk out? Love me too much, baby? If that's the case, maybe you'd like to speak to Optimove, another of our esteemed sponsors. Optimove's specialism is CRM software, and they are the leading provider of this in the iGaming industry. And we love them. We love them. Perhaps you've seen a faded sign at the side of the road while heading down the Atlanta highway, looking for the love getaway. Perhaps that sign said, ICE Barcelona 2025. Because that sign could have been put there by Clarion Gaming, our third and final sponsor. On to the podcast. We're joined by this episode's guest, returning guest. He's been with us before. A man that I like to call Leo Judkins. Fintan, do you have any special names for him?
Just Leo.
That's very familiar. Leo is a performance coach and a chap who sort of did a career pivot, which we've covered in a previous episode. But Leo, welcome back to the podcast. For listeners who maybe like to pretend that they haven't memorized the previous episodes, could you give us a recap on your life up to now?
My life up to now. Yeah. Hey, good to be here, guys. Jon, Fintan, great to see you and hear you again. My name is Leo, and I have been in gaming for a long time, about 14 years. Moved through the ranks, started in poker, then later in sports betting and casino. Worked my way up to director of retention marketing at Victor Chandler, Bet Victor, or BV Group nowadays. People change all the time, and resigned about 4 or 5 years ago. Started my own business after losing a lot of weight and started to coach people first on weight loss, and I've since become a sleep coach, stress management specialist, and now do high performance coaching for iGaming leaders. I've coached about 200 people from all of the big organizations, and that's what I do nowadays.
200. It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
How do you juggle that? Look, everyone needs help, right? So my rule of thumb is everyone should do therapy. Everyone should do therapy. Everyone should have a coach. I genuinely believe that should just be mandatory.
Yeah.
It's because we get so caught up in our own heads.
Yeah.
That it's
it's like that's the thing.
Or the baggage
exactly.
we show up to situations with.
I think that's the thing.
Again,
right?
I've
had that for a long. I had it for a long time as well, Fitz. Where I thought especially as men, I think we think we have to all figure it out ourselves, and can't show any weakness and all that, right? And that basically, just to kind of hit home straight away, that got me drinking every night, got me super heavy, got me in a place a really dark place that I didn't know how to get out of until I actually got a coach, and then I realized how. It was all about actually small steps instead of this all or nothing mindset that we all have, and helped me turn my life around. So, that's what I help other people do now as well.
That's
so you've taken
really
you've taken your experience with your coach, and you basically robbed it all and repackaged it.
Yeah, just put a stamp on it and rewritten a bit of AI over the top of it, just to make sure that essentially, essentially that.
Do you market it as an AI product because you should?
Yeah, I think I should. It's
You
like
charge more.
It's all the hype nowadays, isn't it? Like you get absolutely zero human interaction. You just talk to a bot, and it's great.
Well,
it works.
we're at this really interesting phase though, because all the crypto bros were pivoting into AI, but now with crypto hitting like $80,000, whatever it is, there's going to be this weird mix now of like people trying to pivot back into crypto, or can we merge crypto and blockchain, or so there's going to be a lot of identity crisis or rebranding happening over the next couple of months, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of people are going to need coaching.
I bet they're going to struggle.
So look, 200 people across the gaming industry is a lot of people. But like there must be kind of common trends, or kind of like, obviously everyone's got their own unique problems, but I'd say some of it rhymes and kind of feels like there's kind of categories that you're dealing with. What kind of stuff are you dealing with?
Yeah, great question, Finn. So after I coached a bunch of people, I realized there's all these commonalities, and we basically just stuck it into a program and use that to help people build behaviors, habits that underpin high performance, but also help them with sustainability and making sure that they, actually have a good work-life balance without sacrificing their careers and all that kind of stuff. And it's always the same stuff, right? So the things that typically people struggle with is just over like this all or nothing mindset, and working through the day without taking breaks, getting home completely brain fried, and not having any time or energy for themselves anymore. And that very often creates this downward spiral that is very hard to break out of. And all of that is based on behaviors that you have, right? They're just habits that you can change over time, that you can address. But that's what typically happens with most people. And the first step is to recognize that. And for most people, it starts with things like just improving your overall energy levels. It could be with sleep, could be with just taking breaks, or doing a little bit of walking, or whatever that is, to make sure that you feel a little bit more energetic and you don't arrive at the end of the day completely brain fried. That's where it usually starts for most people. But then the big thing often happens in work, right? Where like what most people do is they start their day completely reactive. They look at their emails and they're on the back foot straight away. They're straight away dealing with all of the problems that might have occurred, and they grind through the day, never like only getting to the most important work at the end of the day. So reclaiming time and, taking back charge of your calendar, making sure that you match your overall energy level with like the importance of your work is a really important second piece, where people just need to be more proactive rather than reactive to what's happening in the day. And obviously with gaming being
that's hard though, right? Because, if your boss is like, no, it's always a 5-alarm crisis, it can be hard to not answer that call at 10 o'clock at night, or not work through your lunch to get that report made, or like what, in terms of kind of the practicalities of that, like how would you, or what kind of tips would you recommend for that?
Yeah, so it's not an all or nothing thing, right? It's not like you that should never happen or can never happen. It's more about that most people just as soon as they're bored, they grab their phone and look at their emails, as soon as they don't have anything to, right? It's that is the problem, right? It's not so much that, it's not so, when the fire alarm goes off, you should probably react to it, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but what I'm saying is that we've got internal and external distractions, and internal distractions are these things when you're bored and you have to grab something, and, so managing that is a big part of it. And then external distractions are things like Slack notifications, email notifications, all those things that pop up. And you can do so much in both those areas to maximize productivity that you'll get far more done during the day in the same amount of time, and without feeling like you're absolutely fried at the end of the day. And again, it's just taking back control and doing things that help you with your.
That is a good point. I noticed that like I've turned off like all notifications. So like Slack, email, all the notifications are off. So I physically have to go to the app to see if there's something new, rather than it kind of constantly pinging at me. And then the other one that drives my wife nuts is my phone is always on silent. Which means I miss, and I don't check voicemails, so I miss a significant amount of calls. But that kind of, I suppose, because it's like using your inbox as your to-do list. You don't have control over your inbox. Like anybody can put something into my inbox in theory, or my calendar. Maybe not John, but nearly everybody can put something into my calendar. So Joe, we had a calendar issue today, or I had a calendar issue today, I should say. That kind of like, there's like, we've got these open doors that anybody can come in. And if we're using that as our way to prioritize stuff, then you're just floating on the tide of other people's priorities. And
exactly.
You don't really get anything done, right?
Exactly. And that's what I mean with taking back charge, right? And so most people just live on somebody else's timeline and on somebody else's priorities. And that's just wrong. We don't get paid for that, right? We get paid for the value that we deliver to our roles. And you do that by actually prioritizing the things that are important to your role or to your business. And if you live on somebody else's timeline and somebody else's notifications, then how are you going to prioritize that? Again, it's not an all or nothing thing. It's not either you do this or you do that, but it's just realizing when that's happening and taking back charge. And I think most people just don't do that.
That makes a lot of sense. And it doesn't help that, it's very addictive, right? Like checking like the dopamine of a new email or a new Slack message or a new WhatsApp and that's without even getting into TikTok and Instagram and these kind of things. But it's just that little dopamine hit. It's basically a slot machine. Like, is there a message? Isn't there a message? Yeah. Type thing is quite tough.
I think it's something like crazy, like 260 times a day or something. People check their phone, something crazy like that, and get distracted every 11 minutes, and then it takes 26 minutes to get back to the same level of focus that you had before. So if you get interrupted every 11 and then it takes 26, like how's that going to work?
I saw a really good talk given by a senior programmer at Google. And he was talking about like if you've got like, two screens, you got one screen with like what you're working on, the other screen is your email. He says we're literally like our peripheral vision from like Stone Age time, caveman time, is designed to scan for enemies, like the tiger in the bush or whatever is going to eat us. And by having that distraction of, say, the screen beside you with your inbox or Slack, whatever it is, even though it's kind of like your vision actually changes right on because it turns black and white. So there's a contrast right at the very, very limits. And he says that, and he talked about that, like that distraction of, I'll just check that. And now you've broken the flow of what you were working on, and that ramp up to the ramp down, ramp up again. And so it's close everything, focus on what you're focusing on. Is the best way to do it. But like we're programmed to scan for these days. Like we treat the notification as seriously as a tiger in the bush, the way our body physically responds to it, even though it's just, somebody's expense report or something like that, or something completely banal, right? The daily report that everybody ignores or whatever it is. Sorry, John, go ahead.
These are all things I've been thinking about recently and that I'm trying to take positive changes about. So, for example, I use an iPhone. I've used one for many years because I use Apple computers, which I've used for decades. But I've been looking at Nokia phones, what people bizarrely call dumb phones, but trading to a less smartphone, something very, very simple. So the first thing I do in the morning isn't check my fucking emails. So if I want to read the newspaper headlines, I actually get up and do it, or I do it as part of when I'm already up. So the first part of the day is about me and getting my shit together and, doing some floor exercise and shit like that, or walking the dog or something positive and not work related. So when I wake up, my brain doesn't immediately go to that shit, because when I get to the end of the day, I am completely fucked. My phone's also always on silent. And I use Sleep Focus and stuff like that. And Sleep Focus is very, very good. I do find that's a very useful thing. And, Macs now, the operating system on the Mac, you can set it up. You can set up your workspace so it's a very focused thing. but yeah, these are things that I've been thinking about quite a lot recently because I was having a bit of a stressful time. Am having a bit of a stressful time, and I left my phone on the landing one night. I just thought, you know what, fuck this. I don't need to fucking look at this. Don't need to read this bullshit. I'm just going to leave it out there. And actually, I slept really well. Yeah. And when I woke up in the morning, I didn't pick it up. I picked a book up. Boom.
It's a game changer, right? And there's all these studies that they've done in canteens of big corporate businesses where they've replaced like soda for water at the till, and of course the increase in the amount of sales on water goes through the roof, and it's just because there's a change in environment. Good job, John, for having a sip of water there. It's just because of the change of environment, right? And so our environment really dictates our habits. And so this is also true with your phone, right? So one of the best things that you can literally do is just leave your phone out of the bedroom and buy an alarm. And that's so scary for so many people. But that is literally one of the best things you could do, because when you go to bed and you're on your phone, it's like being in a pub. There's always one dude that wants to have a last little chat, or there's one thing that you still want to do. And when you wake up, it's like going from a 0 to 100 straight away. You literally, all this shit is literally just being dropped at you, is being thrown at you on your phone straight away. And our cortisol, our stress hormone, is already at its highest in the morning, just after you wake up. So adding to that is obviously not going to be great for your overall performance throughout the day. So just kind of waking up a little bit easier and going to bed a little bit slower, if that makes sense, like slowing down in the evening and ramping up in the morning is a massive game changer. And the best way to do that is literally by managing your phone and putting it somewhere else.
I'll get on the landing. The thing is, so I use my phone. I use Spotify on my phone a lot. And I use Google Maps. So if my son's got football on a Saturday, we might have to go somewhere, and I have no idea where the frigging football ground is. So I use it. So what I'm thinking about doing is my main phone will be the dumb phone, and I'll keep the smartphone or an iteration of a smartphone just for the car.
Yeah. It's a great idea.
So that'll be like a pay-as-you-go or something like that. So it's just sitting there as Google Maps and music, and that's all it does.
The biggest thing, though, John, is just do it. Like all of us have this, what you're going through, right? All of us have it. And but I don't have an alarm, so I need to buy an alarm clock first. And, all of us have these excuses not to do it yet. And then they take
the
forever.
alarm thing, right?
Like you just got to do it. You just put your phone somewhere else. That's it. Right?
I hear you. And I can do this little trick, which I appreciate not everybody can do. But as long as I know what the time is when I go to sleep, this is bizarre. If I know what the time is when I go to sleep, I can say to myself, right, wake up at 7 o'clock. I can say to myself, wake up at 7:08, and I'll wake up at 7:08. I don't know how I can do that, but I can.
Do you check the time during the night, or is it just like a one-off thing? Are you waking like on your light sleep cycle? Are you like coming to and checking the time, or
no, not at all.
Wow, that is a superpower.
It is pretty cool.
It's scary. It's a bit scary.
But so the alarm thing isn't a factor for me. I just need to go and buy that other phone and get the other SIM card and do all of that shit, which actually feels like an enormous faff from where I'm sitting right now. But I understand what you're saying.
That's
this
what
is
Steve
free
Cook
performance coaching.
There you go. Yeah. No, but it's always it's the simple stuff, right? It's the stuff that we would tell our kids. That's kind of what, like, when it comes to
go to your room,
improving your, go to bed on time, right? Don't watch stuff on the iPad while you're in bed, like eat, a wide variation of foods, right? Like, I don't know, like all the typical things that you would tell your kids. That's what we should be doing as well. But we just massively overcomplicate all of it and then don't do it because we make it so complicated. And so it's just about simplification and taking small steps and then being consistent with it. That's that's my whole business model. You're welcome. You know.
Speaking of those steps, you've taken a bit of a step with the business because you've got a podcast now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So
really?
20th. Yeah, thanks. 20th of November. It's gone live. So really excited about it. First 3 guests interviewed. There's another 6 scheduled in. All leaders in the iGaming industry. It's called the iGaming Leader Podcast. All about their personal journeys and what got them to the position that they're in. Typically VPs, directors, C-level execs from all sorts of businesses, startups to listed companies. And quite excited about seeing all the feedback from everybody.
That's brilliant. Congratulations, man. Delighted with you.
But this industry, you only hear from people when you fuck up. So if you don't hear from anybody, you're doing great.
Yeah, kind of true.
And you work obviously you work with leaders, but you also work with companies, right? So you kind of can come in and kind of help at a bigger level within an organization as well. Did I get that right?
Yeah. So I've done a few corporate things. So I've done workshops and those kind of things quite a bit at. So at Entain, we've done 200 men or through a workshop, and but I've also online, and I've also done some in-person stuff. But I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of workshops because they're these one-off things where you get a little bit of information, and it's a bit like learning and development or watching a video, and you sit in this one-day workshop and you get some great material, and it just ends up in the bottom drawer, and it really doesn't work. It doesn't. Like, you might get some great takeaways, but really the problem and the solution is in our day-to-day behaviors, our day-to-day habits, right? And it's about changing those. And so from a corporate side, what we do now is we've got a 6-week program where we basically take typically VP level or head of level, take a section of that leadership team and take them through a 6-week program where every week we do a specific workshop, might be on time management or on meeting cultures or on developing high performance teams. And then throughout the week, we help them with implementing that through daily practices. Because that's really where the key's at. It's not really about the information. It's all about the implementation.
And I think that it is because like all 3 of us can sit here and list the bullet points of like, oh, just leave your phone, do this, do that. And it's the names in your business. If you're not building the habits and rewiring those habits, then it's just really good theory. And it takes like 90 days or something to build a habit. And that's where you get the real change.
Yeah. And, and really about just not self-sabotaging anymore, right? We all have these really good intentions and then we're ready to go and we go all in, and then like about an hour and a half later, we're off the wagon and we never come back on. So it's more about, I always say it's not about not coming off the wagon. It's about making that period that you're off it shorter, right? It's not about staying on. It's about just getting back on more quickly. And the more that you do that, the easier it becomes because that's how you form these habits.
This is a result. Years ago, I did a lot of, I tried to do a lot of meditation and I really struggled with it. And it was just like following like the Headspace apps. Like it was nothing crazy. And it was only afterwards I was listening to something they were saying, because like my mind would always drift off or I'd fall asleep or like I really struggled to stay present and like do whatever the task was. But then somebody said, oh no, Fintan, that's what you're meant to do. That's the practice is catching that drifting off and bringing it back. That's the meditation. That's what you're actually practicing. You're not practicing the counting your breaths or whatever it was. It's that bit. And I think it leads to what you're saying. It's not about being perfect. And it's not about like leading this like David Goggins style, hardcore fucking, who's going to carry the boats bullshit. It's more about like, do the right stuff. You'll have days where like, this is just not happening, or it's a birthday party, or it's a whatever. And then getting back into the good routine again. So you're minimizing you minimize it more. You can contain it more and kind of create a better outcome over 12 months.
Exactly. And it's about identifying the biggest the biggest roadblocks that you have, right? The things that, really cause these issues for you, whatever they are, identifying those and then addressing them and making small changes to them rather than doing a full 180. I often talk about it like trying to run into the water. When you try to run into the water, into the sea, you just fall over, right? And that's what most people do. And what you want to do instead is walk so that you can go a lot further and you actually, going slow to go fast is kind of the idea. 1% improvements is where that's really where you create sustainable change, because we often think about it like almost like tick box exercises where we just do this one thing and it'll be great, and then life happens and we can't maintain it. So yeah, identifying kind of that 80-20, identifying the things that impact most and then making small changes there, because it doesn't have to be done next week, right? It doesn't have to be done next month. It's about the rest of your life. And that's where, once you zoom out like that, that's when it becomes so much easier.
That's really good advice.
Are you making notes?
I'm like, we've got a free coaching session here. I'm just trying to go through what's the most. So I've been feeling overwhelmed.
Okay.
So we were talking briefly off air before we started. So I'm doing a few different things. I have a lot on. I'm also trying to be a good husband and father. So it's that kind of classic, and I'm trying to stay healthy and lose weight. And, so I'm trying to do everything, right? It gets very overwhelming. So there's definitely stuff I'm not doing. Good example, very relevant example, like posting on LinkedIn, talking about the podcast, doing all the kind of stuff I should be doing on LinkedIn. I'm not doing that. Racked with guilt because I'm not doing it, which then makes it worse. Right. And then it becomes this kind of, I haven't done it. Oh no, it's too much. And then it just creates this spiral. And it's so stupid. It's just, fuck it. It's LinkedIn, right? Nobody actually cares. There's nobody waiting for me to post, but it's something I need to do. So I get how stupid this is.
No.
But it is overwhelming, which is this really crazy thing.
But isn't that where it starts, Fintan? That you kind of have the idea that it's stupid what you're experiencing?
When you put it like that, clearly. Okay.
Because it's...
Yeah, that's fair point.
No, but it's like that self-talk, right? Of, I should be doing this and I'm not doing it. Clearly, I suck because I can't do it. And It's so easy and it's such a meaningless thing, but I make it into this big... that's actually very often the core of the problem. It's that, think about it, that self-talk, right? It sounds so, I don't know, tree huggish, I suppose, or something, but that self-talk, if your best mate would talk to you like that, you wouldn't have it, would you? And it's...
John talks to me like that all the time.
Yeah, all right. No, but you know what I mean? It's very...
I do know, John. I'm teasing.
It's the biggest thing. That's one of the
I'm
big
deflecting
things
with humor, I think, is what the therapist would
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, of course, the longer that you put things off, the bigger they become, right? The heavier they weigh. There's this great video on YouTube from this teacher who's holding on to, I've got a big bottle, but they're holding on to this glass of water. And he asked the class, how much does this glass of water weigh? And the class is guessing, so many ounces and so many ounces. And he says, well, the actual amount doesn't matter, because if I hold on to this for 5 minutes, it doesn't weigh a lot. If I hold on to it for an hour, it gets really heavy. If I hold on to it for a few days, it's unbearable. I literally can't hold it up. And so sometimes you just got to put the glass down. And that's such a great metaphor for what you're experiencing as well. Sometimes it's not so much about... It's about all these things that you keep holding on to, which you're not doing because you feel they're too big. Sometimes it's just about making them smaller and taking a first initial step. A bit like Newton's law, once you're in motion, you stay in motion, right? And when you're at standstill, it's really difficult to get moving. So it's about making that first step really easy, simple, creating commitment around it, scheduling it in. Make it as easy as possible. Our mind, however, often thinks it's got to be this big, I've got to post on LinkedIn, like you said, right? I've got to post it LinkedIn. It's got to be 5 days a week. It's got to be massive things. It's got to be awesome.
Goals, knowledge. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
And it's nonsense. You just got to get started.
That's yeah. All right.
And that's where overwhelm comes from.
It's a good point. All right.
So what are you going to do about it?
Work on that. I'm going to do something.
Well, what's that?
What's I'm gonna post something. I don't care what it is. It's going to be something.
Straight after this podcast, okay?
So doing it right now. Yeah, I'll do that podcast.
Make a screenshot and go, I've just had this great conversation with Jon and Leo, and here's my first post in a while. That's it. Done.
He's not going to include me.
Let me get
It'll just be, I had a great conversation with Leo. Jon was watching.
All right, Joe. Hang on, let me do a better screenshot. 1 sec.
Great. There you go.
Bosh, right. Give me your gold faces. There we go. That'll live.
Good stuff. Great.
So,
small steps. Small steps.
Small steps. See, I am feeling like I'm in a sliding doors period of my life where I need to make significant changes. I'm going to try some interesting new things because doing the usual shit isn't working. And that's the thing. I'm at that point in my life where, as most doctors will say, your gender and your age means that you are basically ready for the perfect storm, or not ready for the perfect storm. I can't be the only person in the world feeling like this, can I? I'm almost certainly not. After all, the health service in the UK is set up entirely on statistical probability. That's how funding is apportioned. It's like, we've got X amount of the population who are turning this age and they're also male. So this percentage of them are probably going to be having a few prostate issues. Just for the record, lads, I'm not having any prostate issues that I'm aware of. But yeah, I'm certainly not the only person feeling like this. I mean, shit goes on all the time for everybody, doesn't it? But when you're in the middle of things, it's very, very easy to lose perspective. And it's very, very difficult to restore perspective. Because shit doesn't stop raining down on you, does it? I can't not have the kids this weekend and just sit and quietly get drunk. I probably wouldn't do it quietly anyway. But the world doesn't stop spinning, does it? It's like, when you lose somebody important to you, you don't get a breather. You're not able to say, would everybody just shut up and fuck off for just 5 minutes? Although actually, do you know what? I felt like that during the London Marathon. I was just like, Jesus, would you all just shut up? I appreciate you shouting for me, but fucking give it a rest for a minute, would you? It's a bit loud. It's my fault for training in the countryside on my own. But you know what I mean? It's very difficult. It's difficult to get respite, and it's difficult to restore perspective by yourself. And sometimes, as Fintan alluded to earlier in this, you need outside forces to help you restore that.
Yeah, and the problem is that we really suck at kind of helping ourselves when we're.
You might suck. I don't.
But I don't know. I always like this comparison of a surgeon not operating on their own, on themselves either, on their own brain or something, right? And it's really difficult to see the challenges that you have yourself and where you're stuck yourself because you're inside of that, right? It's very hard to see that, and so that's where an outside perspective can really help. And the problem is that friends and family, they want the best for us, but they're not the best people for advice usually because they kind of put it into some sort of sandwich that, is not going to be helpful. And very often we just don't have people that are that honest with us, that put a mirror in front of us and help us see some of the things that we're stuck with. And coaching is all about it's not really about telling you what to do. It's more about asking you the questions to help you see where the challenges actually are and to find a way yourself so that you are empowered rather than having to have somebody else that becomes your crutch. And So I think, I hear you. It's difficult when the world is spinning and everything is happening at the same time. And so again, that's why reclaiming that time, right, is so key. That's not just a corporate career kind of thing. It's taking charge of your time and your attention is so key to everything that you do. And even if that's just 5 minutes or 10 minutes that you literally book off for yourself to whatever. For me, right, losing 35 kilos started with having a 5-minute walk every day. Like, that's literally what it started with. It wasn't about counting calories or stopping drinking or all these things that I thought I had to do. It was just having a 5-minute walk, because that allowed me to then kind of switch off from working and not, sitting behind my desk and just, and allow me to have a break. And that's so true for almost everybody. It's just about making a little bit of time for yourself, and how you then fill that time in doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
It's not always easy to achieve, though. I mean, and I'm not being facile when I say this or suggesting that you're being facile. It's not easy to make time for yourself.
John, if it would be easy, there wouldn't, nobody would have problems anymore, right? I think actually the fact that it's not easy, but we think it should be easy, right? It should be so easy to go for a 5-minute walk every day, right? The fact that we kind of expect that is what creates the problem. It's not easy to do that every day. Being consistent with making time for yourself is very difficult, because every single thing in the world is trying to grab our attention and our time all the time, right? Like social media, everything is built for just grabbing our attention. It's monetized based on our attention, right? Everything around us. So making that time for yourself and also dealing with the stuff that you're going through is uncomfortable. And so the easier thing to do is stick your head in the sand and pretend it's not there. So of course it's difficult. But when then we say, yeah, but of course I should be able to go for a 5-minute walk. I should be able to make a LinkedIn post. And then we bash ourselves over the head and say, oh, I feel so overwhelmed and I'm stuck. And right?
Yeah. Really good points. Really good points.
Even top podcast hosts are not immune to the pressures of life.
Yeah, there you go.
Probably because we're top podcast hosts, John. That's probably, at the top, the pinnacle.
The only
for
way
now,
from
obviously,
the top,
there's
Fintan,
up and comers, But we'll deal with that. We've crushed them all. We'll crush him too. We'll talk about that.
There's only one way from the top.
Oh,
you can go further. Go higher.
Yeah, higher you go, the harder you fall, right?
No, it's fine.
But it's but guys, it's super common, right? It's really, and I think that's the other thing. I recently started this program called iGaming Leader Mastermind, and there's about 17, 18 leaders from across the industry in there, different kind of levels and different types of organizations, and it's so cool because all of these guys and girls thought they were the only ones with the issues that they're going through, right? Personally, professionally, only to find that there's 17 other people just like them, and probably hundreds and hundreds and thousands just like them that struggle. And one of the things in iGaming, obviously, is that it's a very short-term focused business, right? It's all focused on kind of get results now, how do we get the money back from the butters, all that, right? And so this short-term thinking kind of even encourages more that problem that we have where we want to go all or nothing when it comes to our health, our well-being, our performance. And so, it reinforces behavior that's not beneficial for our personal health. And so, and again, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. It's just about realizing that that's happening and then doing something about it. And realizing that you're not the only one is a good first step, I often think, because it just kind of, all of a sudden you see that you're not weird. Well, not super weird anyway. And it's okay.
Wow. I'm pretty weird. It's fine. I'm fine with that bit. And as for John, well, we won't even go there.
That's why I didn't even pipe up. I mean, there's no point.
Guilty. No, it's a good point. It's really, it's good to kind of just be pulled back out of the bullshit and just kind of go, let's really put this in context. And yeah. Amazing. And this is the kind of magic that Leo could do for you.
But where could I find Leo? Is his wisdom available online? How do I reach him?
It's a good question. Leo, how do people reach you?
iGamingleader.com. Pretty easy.
Great name. Love it.
Good domain name. That's one of my addictions, finding good domain names.
I got a renewal. The amount of times I get like renewal notifications, like, oh yeah, that's a good domain. I should really do something with that.
Yeah. I can spend so much time on it, and it's ridiculous because I absolutely suck at SEO. So it makes no sense. But it's I don't know.
I know somebody.
Oh, do you?
If you need a chat.
No, I'm all right, thanks.
I probably haven't had I registered British Casino Awards and all those domains, but I think my last one that I registered for myself was the much maligned badgerfight.com. No, see,
mate, some crypto brand's going to come in and scoop that up, and you're going to make
Leo, I had an idea, right? I had an idea that it'd be really easy to find an adult-sized badger outfit, and it was going to be photo stories. Hang on, it was going to be.
I'm in.
You got me
so much money do you need? Let's make this happen.
It was going to be photo stories of a badger, a full human adult-sized badger who was living their life as a person, and nobody thought there was anything unusual about this at all until they found themselves in a stressful situation. Then they reacted as a badger. So they'd be like in the office, called into a meeting with HR, everybody dies. It just comes out in a blood stain.
Tuberculosis everywhere.
Yeah, HR announces we're going to have a cull in the office. About just like, fucking come on. And that was what it was going to be. But I couldn't find a fucking adult-sized badger outfit.
What?
Weirdest thing.
What?
I know, right? I was surprised as well.
That's very strange.
Talk about your sliding doors moments.
Have,
Because I was like, I was saying, and I was living in Norwich, so I'd have been about 26 at the time. My life could have been very different. I could have been known as the badger fight millionaire.
The world has moved on. Between Etsy, Alibaba, and Temu, I can get you any amount of badger. This is very doable.
Yeah, but the domain's probably gone by now.
You can. Oh, I thought you still owned the domain.
No, I don't own it anymore. Hang on.
What a mistake.
Quick. Let's register before the episode goes out.
Yes.
Quick.
To find a great domain. I already know my great domain name. Thank you. Oh, it's going to be good. Tell me it's free.
Badger.
It's free.
There you
go. They don't know what they're doing. It's only $13 a year. Those fools.
This gold. That's just giving it away.
And I thought they knew their business. But maybe it's cheaper if I get it for 10 years.
It probably will be.
It's 0.5% off.
Nice.
Would have been $134.80. They're offering me $134.20. So nice. I mean, it's still a deal.
Very generous of them.
Yeah. So look out for the. Hey, Fintan. Now there's some potential there for some sponsorship, I think.
Farmer's Journal.
No, farmers and badgers don't mix generally.
Exactly. It's vicious.
I need to think about it, but there's a business there waiting to happen. Trust me. I know what I'm talking about. What the fuck do I know about business? I know about having a laugh.
It's gonna. You'll do fine. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, as long as
but it'll be funny.
as long as their mother can feed the kids,
bit.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
It's not a business.
But it was never intended to be. The idea was never about it being a business. It was just about doing something that I would have found really funny.
Well, one of the funniest Twitter accounts I follow is the Sylvanian family one.
Oh yeah,
you know those little Sylvanian, and they got like the little like badger and squirrel or whatever, but they're just put up in these like massively sexual innuendo scenarios. It's very, very funny. It's hard to, impossible to describe, but it's, I'll send you the link afterwards.
Well, thanks.
Appreciate that. Cheers with it. Because like when you got 10 minutes, you flick through Twitter, you can have a look at this. Right?
We were talking about distractions and the survival imperative and all of that, and I'll send you the Sylvanian family's Twitter account. Fuck me, we're falling into a trap here, Fintan.
Look,
exactly.
This is the problem with kids, right? So like people are complaining like, oh, my kid's addicted to the iPad or video games and stuff. And my thing is, okay, well, what are you giving them that's more entertaining? Or like, what are you doing that's like, because, the iPad is massively entertaining. The real world generally sucks in comparison. So for them to have to like, well, I could sit here and talk to you, or I could do something else. It's quite like the
Fintan, there's another factor in there. There's another factor in there, and adults don't factor this one in. Adults don't fucking get this.
Control,
100%. They have autonomy with their tablet,
which they don't have on the TV or anything else in their lives.
Anything else.
The Dutch secondary schools are all introducing like no phones. Because what they've noticed is the kids just aren't talking to, like at break time and stuff, everyone's just on their phone.
Yeah.
And they're not talking to each other. And like, it's particularly like for the first years and stuff coming in, like it's actually creating like issues where like the kids just don't know each other. Because the phone is more interesting than,
But don't you think a lot of that is, I've got 2 kids as well. And it's, I think it's always so interesting. Kids don't do what you say; they do what you do, right? And like, how much are we on our phones? Like, you literally everywhere you look, you see people walking on their phones, not paying attention to anything, right? And so it's just modeling other behavior that kids see in others. And I think the other thing, I'm very guilty of as well, is that when you're knackered and you come home knackered, it's very difficult to, sit down and build a Lego, right? It's easier to just plant your kid behind a telly and go cooking or whatever, whatever you're doing. But I think those 2 things are actually usually the problem. And very often what's being said though is, all these kids, the kids are the problem. No, not really. I'm a real strong believer in taking full accountability for your own actions and taking back control of the things that you do and that you have control over. But we often kind of feel that it's perhaps somewhere else or somebody else's responsibility or society as a whole, whatever that is. And I think no, it's actually take back control yourself. Take ownership for it and see what you can do about it. And I think it's like I see it with my kids. I see it a lot where. Like we both love reading on Kindles. Both my kids are on Kindles. They're 6 and 8. That's super weird for kids that are 6 and 8. It's just not because we tell them to. It's because they do what we do. And they're also a lot on iPads and stuff, and probably too much. But again, it's usually because we're busy and we'd rather plant them on something and have them sit there than sit down and build a Lego. And that's something that we're also actively working on. I think it's all just mimicking behaviors.
Parenting is role modeling.
Yeah.
You got to be the best version of yourself if you want your kids to be the best version of themselves.
Fuck.
Big believer in that.
Well, let's all recognize now then that my kids are doomed.
No, they're not. Your kids are
John.
amazing. Your kids are great. So
Right, Leo Judkins, where can people find the podcast when they want to find it? Is it through the website? Is it through all good podcast channels?
Yeah, all good podcast channels. We'll do video podcasts as well. So it'll be on YouTube, Spotify, all the standard channels. It'll be on the website as well. Again, I don't know when we're releasing this, but our podcast is being released on the 20th of November. So
this will come out just after your podcast.
Perfect. So it will have just been released. Head over.
And if somebody wants to search on Spotify, what is the name of the podcast?
It will be the iGaming Leader Podcast.
It's a nice name for a podcast.
It's a great name for a podcast.
Thank you. Everything we do is iGaming Leader, iGaming Leader Mastermind, iGaming Leader Accelerator, iGamingLeader.com, iGaming Leader Podcast. You can make a tongue twister out of it. It's great.
Not going to,
yet,
but I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks.
Leo, thank you for joining us, and good luck with.
Thanks, Leo.
Well, good luck with everything. Terrific.
Yeah, you're doing great. Keep it up.